We're live, folks. Hello, everyone. How are you? This is Keirsten Sires and Nick Petrella here from Locker Room Talk, here to talk to you about the early decision process for college recruiting. Go ahead.
So yes, my name is Nick Petrella. I played baseball at Skidmore College, where I graduated in 2015, and I applied early decision round 2.
Excuse me. My name is Keirsten Sires. I also went to Skidmore College. Nick and I are the co-founders of Locker Room Talk, and I graduated in 2014, where I played tennis and soccer. I applied early decision 1, and we're going to get into the definitions of what early decision is to kind of explain the whole process in general. So, to start, early decision is a type of early admission to a college which is binding upon receiving your acceptance letter. Students are usually required to submit the application by November 1st, but make sure you do your research because sometimes it's November 15th. If you are accepted to this college, you have to attend the college. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The only way that you can get around that is if you argue that your financial aid package is not sufficient enough, but we'll get into that later. Another type of early admissions is called an early action, which is a little bit different. It's non-binding, and you receive a response early, and you still have until May 1st to accept and say that you want to go to that college. So that being said, we're going to go over some of the pros and the cons. If you have any questions or if you want to throw us a couple likes, feel free to do so throughout the video. And thanks for the like.
Thank you. Number one.
And then if you have any questions, ask them now or throughout the video when you have an idea, and then we'll answer them at the end.
All right, so just a few pros of doing early decision, applying early decision, is a lot of times it could be beneficial for you in terms of the chances of getting into that school. There have been some studies that say that an early decision application is worth about 100 SAT points. Some schools, it's 20% more likely to get accepted. Those numbers vary from school to school. For example, Haverford recently, 43% of their early decision applicants got accepted versus only 24% regular decision. Same with Duke. Those numbers were 24% early decision, 9% regular. So the one thing to keep in mind though is when you have an early decision, you have a smaller applicant pool. So that's why your odds might be a little bit higher because more kids will apply regular decision versus early decision. Another thing is if you do get in early decision, like I did, like Keirsten did, it's kind of, once you get in early, it's stress-free for the rest of the senior year. You don't have to worry about applying regular decision, hearing back from all the schools, and then deciding which ones you want to go to. So once you're in early decision, the process is over. You can just relax and enjoy the rest of your senior year. And then if you do get denied from early admission, what happens a lot of times is rather than just getting flat out denied from the college, you'll just get deferred to regular admission, and then you get into that applicant pool, which kind of makes it seem, so it's kind of basically like applying to the school twice. You apply early decision, and you apply with the other kids for regular decision. And then relating it to sports, a lot of times when you're getting recruited by a coach, he or she may want to get you to this school very badly, so they'll push you to go early decision. They'll say, because they'll make, in their eyes, they'll make you more of a serious prospect, more serious recruit, so you could have leverage with the coach and kind of show him or her that you really do want to go to their school and play for them.
Yeah, quite honestly, that's why I applied early decision, was because the coach approached me and said, if you apply early decision, you'll most likely you'll be able to get into the school. But one of the tips for that is make sure you get an early read on all of your admissions material, because if you get an early read on something, they'll be able to tell you if you'll get into the school or not based on your current grades and everything that you have for your application and your recommendations and everything like that. So that's always a really beneficial way to kind of tell that you will be getting into school. Ask your college coach about that, because they will be the ones who will be talking to the admissions office. Some of the cons for applying early decision are that you cannot compare financial aid packages, obviously, because if you apply early decision, you're bound to that college no matter what the financial aid package ends up being after you after they decide they want to have you at their school. So if you're unsure or really need a financial aid package, I suggest waiting on that one and applying to a bunch of different schools and doing that. But at the same time, a college coach may think that you're not interested or you're not their first choice or something like that just because you are like not doing the early decision process. Another thing is that the pressure to decide early on is pretty intense. I mean, how do you know the first time that you walk onto a campus if that's where you really want to go? So keep that in mind. If you want to apply a bunch of different places and you can't decide that on one school and you're not sure if that's the one that you want to get married to, make sure that you do your research and that you really want to go to that school, obviously, because you're bound to them. Another con, if you get denied, other coaches, after you apply and they know that you applied early decision, they may say, well, you didn't apply here early decision, are you not serious about us? Were we not your first choice? They may fear that you're going to accept the college or you're going to go to the other college if you get accepted into both. And then if you don't apply early decision, you could potentially lose your spot if the coach really, really, really wants you to. He or she may just be like upset with you in general and think that you're not serious about it. So overall, it's a confusing situation. I think early action is a lot more beneficial than early decision because with early action, you're not bound to that exact school. So you can apply to as many schools as you want.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind with early decision is when I applied to school, like I said, I did early decision round 2, so it was kind of later on than the early November date that most early decision applications are due. And so what I did was I applied early decision, but I also kept working on my applications to the other schools I was looking at for regular decision, because the last thing you want is, put all your eggs in the one basket of a certain school. You apply early decision and you stop looking at other schools, stop working on other applications, and you hear back from a certain school, that the school that you applied early decision to, and if you don't get in, you're kind of behind the 8 ball, having to catch up on your applications for other schools, and at that point you're kind of behind the rest of the other applicants.
So Amy, to answer your question, a letter of intent is a lot different than an early decision letter. A letter of intent is basically saying that you just want to go to that school, but it's like more of like a verbal commitment, let's say. You're not committed to the school until the financial aid papers are signed as far as a letter of intent is concerned. So it is different. Early decision is that you know that you want to go to that school and it's 100% and you're contractually bound to that school. Letter of intent isn't necessarily a contract until you sign financial aid papers, and you can still apply regular decision. You don't just have to apply early decision to that. And then I want to read this really cool quote about from this article called "Racing One Another, Athletes Are Driven to Early Decisions." They are talking about how coaches and administrators say athletes are jumping in at a greater rate because worries that advantage they have in the admissions process will evaporate. So basically, it's a huge worry that if you don't apply early decision, that your spot is going to be filled by someone else. Obviously, Nick was talking about some really great stats earlier with overall, you're 20% more likely to get into a college if you apply early decision. But that doesn't mean that you're definitely going to get into that college. So there's no race to try and fill your spot, but that's just definitely something to think about. And then I applied early decision, and I think, handed all my stuff in, got my early read, handed everything in, and then in December I found out, and for me it worked. I knew I wanted to go to Skidmore right away. I narrowed my college search down to 3 colleges, and I only applied to Skidmore. So personally speaking, it was really beneficial for me. And then we have somebody that had Celine, one of our interns. She had a bad experience, correct? So
right.
Nick's going to read a bad experience.
So obviously when you apply early decision, you hear back early, and then there's going to be a long break between from when you get accepted to the school and when you go to the school. So a lot of things can happen, not only to you, but to the program you're interested in, whether it's a coach leaving or something along those lines. So Celine, in her experience, she went early decision, got accepted to the school, and in that meantime, the coach that had recruited her left the school. So that was one kind of downfall of going to a school so early, because you never know what's going to happen in the time you get accepted to when you actually arrive on campus. And then also with going early decision, it's a big decision. Like college in general is a huge decision at such a young age. Going early decision kind of compounds that to make it even bigger decision, because you can only pick one and it has to be a lot earlier on in the process. So just like from my personal experience from talking to other athletes, just the biggest thing you need to make sure of when you do apply early decision is that you've done your research. This is the school for you that, like Keirsten said, you're ready to basically marry, you're ready to commit to for 4 years. And then there's a lot of reasons that kids might apply early decision that aren't great reasons. Like everyone knows the whole application process is long and it's boring, but you don't want to apply early decision just to get it over with. You have to, like, in the long run, you will regret that decision. So just make sure that you have a strong application already. If for some reason you think that your application isn't great and you can add to it in the few months after or in between early decision deadline and regular decision deadline, I would say maybe wait regular decision, get your application as strong as possible, and then start applying to schools rather than just, applying to school with a weaker application.
Yeah, you don't want to apply to like a really difficult school just because you want to get into it, because it's the hardest school if you don't have the grades or the application to do so. And I'm sure a coach would tell you ahead of time, but they also wouldn't appreciate that. I think the most important thing is getting an early read, to be honest with you, because the admissions office will tell you straight up, you need to increase your SAT scores, or your application isn't good enough, or, you're going to get in 100%. And then one other thing that we haven't talked about was the letter, the one that the Ivy Leagues do.
Oh, so I forget the exact term, but there are some schools that they do this for early decision.
A likely letter.
A likely letter, early decision and regular decision, but they could send you something like a likely letter, and it'll basically be saying like, yeah, we plan on admitting you, but you haven't been admitted yet. So it's kind of like a tough thing. It's like, oh, well, am I going to go there? Am I going in? Am I getting into that school or am I not? They kind of don't tell you right away, but they say odds are you're going to. So that's something that keep in mind, that if you get it, that's great. But just like with early decision, don't give up on other schools, on other applications just because you got that, because you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a really mean letter, but
yeah, seriously,
it messes with you.
It's tough.
Maggie, if her question is, should you apply to a school if the team thinks you're cool? I think so. I think that's the most important thing. If the team thinks you're cool, then I think you should definitely apply. But what do I know? So yeah, overall, I think that at the end of the day, it has to be the right fit for you. I know that's such like an arbitrary answer, and it's hard to determine if that's right for you, but I think when you walk onto a school campus and visit and go to the classes and do your research, you kind of know what school you want to go to. So it's an interesting experience. Like I walked onto Skidmore's campus and I basically told my parents I want to go here. I don't want to go anywhere else. So if that's the feeling that you have, then apply early decision. If not, then maybe early action or applying regular decision is the way to go for you. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get in, even though statistically speaking, it is a little bit easier to get in if you apply early decision. But I think those are my thoughts. Can we want to talk about Mercedes one a little bit?
Yeah,
she had a pretty good one too. Another intern, Mercedes. I don't know if she's on watching right now. She's from Canada.
She definitely is.
Yeah,
everyone's watching. Everybody's watching.
We'll talk about her story a little bit, which was pretty interesting.
So Mercedes is an international student. She is from Canada, so she kind of felt that she had a late start versus, the American students because she didn't have the opportunity to play on a travel team until around 10th or 11th grade. And so she didn't commit to her school. She committed to the Ohio State University until February of her senior year, which is considered very late. So, and it's something that as an international student, you know, she wasn't even aware of, that schools offered this. And not every school does. So that's something that you need to look into, like when you're applying to certain schools. But it's something that, you know, maybe more international students can become aware of if they start looking into the process a lot sooner.
Yeah. So those are our thoughts on applying early decision. I don't know if there's any high school parents or student athletes out there that have any questions. If they do, now's your chance to get them in.
And just, well, one more thing that I forgot to mention earlier, like Keirsten, and like we had said, it is binding. Like if you do get into a school early decision, and whether it's not enough financial aid or you get like cold feet from the time you get accepted to when you want to go, like what do? It is binding, but it's not technically legally binding in terms that no one can actually, the school can't bring you to court over it. So if you do get into early decision and you want to somehow get out of it, the best way to go about it is you have to call the school, explain to them why, the school and coach, if you're an athlete, explain to them why you're kind of going back on the contract, and then they have to release you from the agreement. And a lot of schools won't, unfortunately. You'll almost get blacklisted from colleges for a year. They'll contact your high school guidance office as well as any other schools that admitted you and let them know that, hey, this kid applied early decision and he or she is not coming here. So unfortunately, the most likely thing you'll have to do is take a gap year where after high school you kind of take a year off, do whatever, and then the following like year you could start applying to other schools.
Yeah, I think it definitely could be beneficial for athletes, though, especially to leverage like your position with the coach. Hold on, we're getting a question right now. Okay, here's a question from Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Can other schools continue to recruit you if you've been accepted early decision somewhere? You can apply other places. I'm sure at that point you're going to have to tell the coach at the school that you applied early decision. At the other schools, so they may not continue to recruit you. I'm not sure. That's probably up to the discretion of the coach, but I mean, they'll know that if you get into that school that you have to go to that school. So I'm sure that they would.
Yes, something like that. You know, it's kind of like you apply early decision. You should let the coaches know, but at the same time, you don't want to completely cut off communication with them just in case you do not get into the school you applied early decision. You don't want to completely cut off communication with the other coaches. But if you do get into a school and you're accepted early decision, they most likely will just stop recruiting you because there's no point because you have to go to that certain school.
Oh, you're going to take this next question from John.
So from John, he asked if you back out on an early decision, will word travel around to other schools? And it will. They will contact they'll contact your high school guidance office as well as any other schools that admitted you and let you know that that you backed out of your contract, and then they'll most likely withdraw their offer to you, and then you would have to do something like a gap year or kind of just you kind of just are out of luck at that point.
You might not want to do that unless if it's really unfair of what they did with
you can argue financial aid, and that has been the only case where kids have been able to get out of their contract and then immediately start applying to other schools or go to other schools. But I mean, the one piece of advice is if financial aid is something that's important to you and something that you need, maybe early decision isn't the best route for you to go because it is binding. So whether or not they give you as much financial aid as you need, you won't know until you hear back as if you got in or not. So if financial aid is something that you do really need and it's a big factor in your decision, I would highly recommend just doing regular decision.
We have two good questions that just came in. One from Annie, one from Philippe. We'll get into both of them. Annie's is, what percentage of your teammates in college do you think applied early decision? I think at Skidmore, I know on the tennis team, a decent amount of my teammates applied early decision. I wasn't recruited for soccer, so I don't know what percentage of my teammates on my soccer team did, but I would say a pretty high percentage. I think in general, they pushed for early decision with their athletes because being at a D3 school, I think they want to get in the recruits as quickly as possible without the potential of them going to maybe a D1 school or a comparable D3 school. What do you think?
I don't really know how many kids on the baseball team did. I mean, I know I did. I would say it's split. I don't know. I got some baseball players on here if they want to kind of let us know. Miller,
Did you guys apply early decision?
Benzo's on there.
And then Philippe asks, what are your thoughts on the ED2 application? So early decision 2 is a delayed one. It's not the November 1st deadline. I think it's a good play. If you're undecided at first, and then you kind of know, you do your official visits and really find out what school you want to go to, I think early decision is just as good in general. And like the stats that we were saying was basically for ED1 and ED2, so there's still obviously a benefit. So I think that's also a good way to go if the opportunity presents itself. Every school is going to be different, and you'll have to look into what the school offers, whether it's early action or early decision or how they work recruiting. Yeah.
All right, so I got one teammate who did early decision. Thank you, Chris. All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining. If there's any last-minute questions, get them in now, and we'll answer them. Oh, another thing. If you want to see if your financial aid package at that school is the right fit for you, you can. A lot of the time, there's calculators online that you can do. I know Duke has one, or you can talk to your college coach, and he'll probably be pretty helpful, and talk to the admissions office as well, or the financial aid office. So yeah. All right, guys.
Should we sign off with some music?
Oh, yeah, we'll sign off with some music. This is what we started with one.
If anyone missed it.